Hello everyone, I am Ozzy Hidalgo. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Training and Development Director here at Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center. Today's webinar is part of our Real Transition Partners Grant funded through the Rehabilitation Services Administration, which focuses on supporting our work with families and youth with disabilities as they transition to adult life, with an emphasis on employment, vocational rehabilitation, and independent living. Today's workshop is called Your Voice, Your Story, Your Future, taking an active role in your IEP meeting and transition plan. This is an interactive webinar designed for youth. We will cover how to share your story effectively during your IEP meetings, how to participate in decision making, and how to build self-determination skills that will support you in school, work, and independent living. We are so glad that you're spending your morning with us. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session. Meanwhile, you can drop your questions anytime in the Q&A or the chat. To do this, simply click the Q&A or the chat icon that you will find in the navigation bar located at the bottom of your Zoom window, and then type in your questions. I will be keeping an eye on those for us throughout the presentation. And I want to mention that today's presentation is presented in English with automated AI generated captions via Zoom. And as always, we have simultaneous live interpretation in Spanish available for our Zoom attendees. Okay, so we are ready to start the presentation. Allow me just 1 second to share my screen with all of you. Here we go. So I would love to invite our presenter, Roberta Grogan, to introduce herself. So please, Roberta, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ozzy, for the introduction. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I am Roberta Grogan, and before anything else, I am a parent of now two adult children with disabilities, which makes us in many ways part of a community. The community we share is made up of so many different perspectives, experiences, and stories. The focus today will be to recognize the importance of encouraging and empowering students with disabilities to share your stories. In reviewing the registration, we see that many of you are parents of students with disabilities, and we are grateful for your interest. If you have not already done so, please allow us to encourage you to invite your child to join us today, as they are the most important part of the focus today. If you're a student who is already here with us, thank you for joining us today. I want to go over some goals for today. So Ozzy, if you could change the slide. Thank you. Here are the few of the goals for today's webinar we aim to accomplish together. I'd like to take a few moments to discuss goal number 2, as it's an important one for you as self-advocates, and for those of you on this webinar who are parents, caregivers, and or other members of the IEP team tasked with transition planning. Become familiar with and comfortable discussing individual disability and needs arising from the way the disability presents. This may be a goal you are comfortable with already. However, if not, you need to take a deep dive into deciding why not. You may hear terms that seem interchangeable, but they are really not. Diagnosis, disability, and classification are all parts of the discussion. However, they serve quite different purposes. Here's a very general way to think of them. Diagnosis is a medical term from a doctor. It tells you how your brain and your body work. Classification is a school term used by your IEP team, used to provide supports and services. Disability is more like a real life impact. It describes how it affects you in everyday life. This is the aspect we will focus on today, because being comfortable with describing your disability is so important to telling your story and planning for post-secondary life. And that means life after high school. Next slide, please, Opie. This is a poll, and Ozzy is going to deliver the poll for us today.
Right. Thank you, Roberta. So before we go ahead, we want to measure how much does our audience know about some key terms like self-advocacy and self-determination. So for that, I'm gonna go ahead and launch our first poll. As you can see on your screen now, the question reads, self-advocacy is dot dot dot. In Spanish, la autoabogacía es punto punto suspensivos. Y tienen and you have four different options where you can choose from. You can choose as many options as you see fit. The first one reads, knowing yourself, your strengths, challenges, preferences, and goals. The second option is knowing your rights, what supports, accommodations, or services you are entitled to. The third option, communicating your needs, asking questions, explaining what helps, speaking up respectfully. And the fourth option, taking action, following through, problem solving, and not giving up. So we'll allow just a few more seconds before we close the poll. Most people have already answered. Okay, I'm closing the poll now. And here we have the results. So 75% of you chose the first option, knowing yourself, as something that applies for self-advocacy. 75% also chose the second option, knowing your rights, as self-advocacy. 50% of you chose communicating your needs as what self-advocacy is. And 38% of you chose the fourth option, taking action. Thank you all so much for answering our poll. Roberta, what do you think about those answers?
I think those answers are an excellent place to start from, and that they are very solid answers, actually. So we have a focus group here. Thanks, Ozzy.
Would you like to tell us what the correct answer is for
Well,
that question?
I think the correct answer is that all parts of those choices feed into it. And as somebody becomes more comfortable with different aspects of it, they become a better self advocate. Knowing your rights in self advocacy is very important. And deciding your pathway of the self determined aspect is very important as well. So, again, Ozzy, thank you for the poll. We appreciate it. And thank those of you that participated in the poll.
Perfect. So,
Next.
as Roberta said, all answers were correct answers. We're gonna go ahead and launch our second poll, which, as you can see on your screen now, it reads, self-determination is dot dot dot, being in charge of your life and your future. Which of these activities do you think helps you be self-determined? Option number one, choosing classes or activities you enjoy. Option number two, setting goals for after high school. And option number three, making decisions about your future. Again, you can choose as many options as you see fit. Um, I'll give you all a few more seconds. I can see that a few of you have not answered yet. So we'll give you a few more seconds before we close the poll to get the results. Okay, let me go ahead and close the poll now. So for this question, 40% of you chose choosing classes or activities that you enjoy as part of self-determination. 45% of you chose option number two, setting goals for after high school as self-determination. And 90% of you chose the third option, making decisions about your future. Again, thank you all for participating in our poll. And Roberta, what do you think about these answers?
Again, I am thrilled with the participation and I'm very excited by the answers because it shows that at least it's a solid working knowledge of what self-determination is. And those three components may be different for each person, but they are definitely components of what self-determination is. So thank you, Uzi, for running the poll for us.
Of course, Roberta. So all of them were again correct answers in
No
this.
bad answers, no bad answers.
Got it. All right. Let's continue with the presentation. Thank you all so much for participating. I'll go ahead and move to the next slide.
Thank you, Uzi. Um, I'm going to not read each slide all the time, but for this one, I'm going to read the slide. How are the two concepts related as we think about them and consider the future? Self-determination basically is deciding your path. Self-advocacy is speaking up to get there. And as we just said, both are very important to telling your story and planning for your future. And now you know that those two things feed into transition planning. Um, Developing these skills takes time and practice. Using some of these tools we'll be providing you with today will make that much easier process. Next slide, please, Ozzy. Self-awareness, self-advocacy, and self-determination. I'm going to give you a few moments to look at the slide. And then the conversation around disability should begin very early. And it is very important that it be talked about with families. I'm sorry, it'd be very important that families begin the conversation with each other. If the conversation is not begun in the home, then your story can take on a narrative that has a voice that is not yours and is not your family's. Speaking honestly and candidly is important and can lead to seeking out more information and support. If you're not sure how or where to start that conversation, take a look at the link in the chat, which will lead you to the New York City Public Schools website and to a Talking About Disability section. I'm going to give you a term right now that's pretty important. Presuming competence is an important concept to understand and to use in your planning. It means that before you say, I can't, to something, instead you need to say, I can, and you try that skill and activity. How will you know what you're capable of if you don't try? You might not accomplish it right away, but with the right supports and multiple tries, who's to say you can't do it? Nothing about me without me is another important idea to take hold of as a student and to carry with you as you practice self-determination and self-advocacies. Decisions about your future should not be made without you having an active voice in the discussion and planning of that future. Next slide. Take a moment just to look at it. A team approach that honors the students' input is particularly important to the process. Sharing information and resources can help build a good plan. It is important to know who the members of the team are and what their roles are in the process. You should not be afraid to ask questions at your own meeting. If there is something that you do not understand, ask questions, slow it down and ask the questions at your meeting. You cannot make an informed decision if you're not clear on what you're deciding and what goes into that decision. So at a table, you can be very overwhelmed and you need to slow down the process because you're not a professional in education, but you do deserve to know and to participate in those decisions that are being made about your education, especially as it relates to your future. In this slide, we refer to utilize the online resource to assist you in this process, such as I'm Determined. We're going to go into that a little bit more later. And I'm Determined can really be a best friend as a starting place to jumping in. This next slide, we're going to show you a short video. Self-advocacy includes being able to talk about your disability, what it is, and how it affects your life at school, in your community, at work, and in daily living. You might not think much about the future right now, but planning ahead with support from those people around you can help you have a successful transition to life after high school. One real life situation you will likely face is disclosure or deciding whether to share your disability with others. This is your choice. You get to decide who to tell, what to share, when, where, and why. This doesn't mean that your disability is something to hide. It means that you are in control of your story. That's why learning to tell your story is so important. Now let's watch a short video from Youth Power, which is a New York State group run by and for young people with disabilities to see how others share their experiences. Go ahead, Ozzy.
I'll be more than glad to play that for us.
Deciding to disclose or tell an employer about a disability is a difficult and personal choice. But how do you know what choice to make? When's the best time? What happens if you don't disclose?
Hey, how's the application going over there?
We're about telling them about the disability.
Well, you know you don't have to let them know about your disability, but they don't have to give you accommodations unless you disclose your disability.
So what should I do?
There are many things to consider before disclosing your disability to a potential employer. Some people create strategies to self-accommodate without disclosing. Others choose to disclose so they can get more information about potential barriers, support networks, and even disability services.
So you know you don't have to tell them all the personal information, right?
I don't.
No, all you have to tell them is how your disability affects the way you do your job and what accommodations and support you need.
Whether your disability is visible, like if you use a wheelchair, or a disability is hidden, such as a learning disability or a bipolar disorder, it may change how or when you would disclose, if you chose to do so.
Come in. Hello.
Hi.
Please sit down. Do you have any disabilities or conditions that might affect your job performance here?
Whoa. An employer cannot ask you any type of questions about your disability or the severity of it, but it's important to learn and how to advocate for yourself in situations like this. But let's try that again.
Can you perform all the job requirements here with or without accommodations?
So yeah, that was good. At this point, you can decide to disclose your disability.
For more information, check out the National Collaborative on Workforce and Disabilities, the 411 on Disability Disclosure, a workbook for youth with disabilities. You can also visit the New York State Department of Labor's youth portal at labor.ny.gov/youth or visit youthpowerny.org for more resources on career exploration and self-advocacy.
Ozzy, before we go to the next slide, I think I just want to frame this out a little bit. And so for students and for parents, this may seem something very far off in the future. It's a workplace situation. However, part of transition planning and transition activities may involve internships or work experiences. So it becomes very relevant very early on. And the discussion of disability should be something, and how that disability is accommodated should be something that the team is looking at as they prepare to transition. So getting comfortable in one's skin with disability is really important, not just for understanding how it affects you, but how you may want to present in the world after high school. Next slide, Ozzy, please.
Correct, Roberta. And I think this important information about disclosure and about accessing accommodations, it's also relevant not only for workplaces, but for instance, if people want to go to secondary um, education courses, or if they want to go to the university, or if they want to access accommodations at a program like a day hub program. Disclosure matters in all those environments. It's not just for work. So maybe we can take consider this just as an example of what that may look like in terms of finding work, but it is important for all different contexts. I will go
Absolutely.
ahead. I
Thank
will go
you.
ahead and drop that link in the chat for our audience, and I'll move to the next slide.
Thank you, Ozzy. Um, if you consider transition planning for post-secondary life, this slide illustrates a journey for a student who may not be considering college and career pathway. Transition planning is just as important for students who are planning a post-secondary life and seek employment to be the gateway to independent living. The journey will look different for every student, and every family needs to focus on the unique skills, goals, and supports necessary to enable the student to experience meaningful participation in planning and setting goals for life after high school. Everyone's story is unique, as too will be the way they tell it and plan for it. So let's take a moment just to look at this graphic. And I utilized Chat GPT to generate this so that I could share an example of tools that can be used, in this case, Chat GPT responsibly, to tell a story. In today's video clips, students share parts of their stories through video in their own words. Let's take a moment to think. Are you a strong writer or maybe an artist? Can you speak to your story, maybe on a video or coming up with questions and a script? All of these are ways you can utilize your self-advocacy as a participant in your IEP meeting as we consider transition planning. So if we look at this slide for a student with disabilities from 11 to 14 years old, transition is really part of every student's experience. Career planning is part of every student's experience from early years, because in New York State, we have a requirement for that. This then becomes age specific. 15 years old to 16 years old, these are what you'll be doing. 17 to 18, 19 to 21. A student with a disability has the right to remain in school until they turn 21 or receive a diploma. That's part of the transition planning. And look at all the things that go, the drop downs at the bottom that can go into transition planning. Introduction to transition services, self-advocacy skills, which you're already doing today, exploring interest, work-based learning, job coaching, college and CUNY bridges, work and internship, supported employment, and then introduction to agencies that would help Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, access VR referrals, and independent living skills. This is a really very succinct overview of a transition planning timeline for a student who may not be going to college. It will look different for every student, but this is a wonderful tool. And again, I utilized ChatGPT, which I utilized responsibly because I know some of the rules and regulations around transition, most of them here in New York State and most in New York City. Ozzy, any questions about that?
No, we don't have any questions regarding this
Okay,
so far. We have a few questions, but we can take a look at those at the end of the presentation.
thank you. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. Goals of transition planning. So this slide, when we look at it, our interest as educators is to best prepare students to succeed in endeavors they choose after completing high school. Our aim for each student, and this is really important, to live, learn, and earn as independently and as successfully as possible upon graduating or exiting from school. And then it goes on to list the goals of transition planning to incorporate the student's needs, abilities, interests, and strengths in planning for post-secondary activities, including college and career readiness. Enable each student and their family to make informed choices. Include community experience in school instruction. Develop a student's employment and adult living skills. Enable each student to find success in moving from school to post-school activities. Whether the student begins working directly after high school or following additional post-secondary educational experience, college or university, we support the students as they move from job awareness to career assimilation. This is true regardless of the level of support students may require at the workplace or volunteer site, including if they're expected to work independently. Now, that's a mouthful, but that comes directly from the New York City Public Schools Guide to Transition Planning. And when they say preparing you to live, learn, and earn independently and successfully as possible after you leave high school is an interest of everybody involved. So that goal of transition planning is for the entire transition team. And that what everybody goes into your transition meetings with, your IEP meetings, with that goal that comes directly from New York City Public Schools Guide to Transition Planning. Next slide, please, Rosie. Okay. Priority considerations depending on your post-secondary goals. So as we've been stressing, not everybody's goals are going to look the same. Not every person is the same. Again, there's a family guide to transition planning. It's available online. It's also published. And in that guide, it sets forth information. And that's what you as family, you as an individual, as a student with a disability, and you as a team should be looking at. There's checklists for those students planning to attend college, planning to attend trade school or enter the workforce, planning to attend a day program, and planning for independent living. Each one of these guides starts as a checklist, which can be individualized for each one of you. And it is a fabulous resource that I encourage you to access. Next slide, please. Thanks. Ozzy, we're going to go into and the actual invitation in a second, but where to begin crafting your story. All right, you have an ability to look at the questions that will appear on the invitations to your IEP planning meetings. At 14 years old, you will be invited to attend your IEP meeting, to get an actual invitation. And so when you go into that IEP meeting, you can become overwhelmed, maybe. Perhaps looking at the questions you're asked in the invitation to your IEP meeting will help you. You'll just see how important telling your story is and how thinking about those questions before you go into a meeting can make a huge difference in your self-determination and being part of your transition planning. Ozzy, could you pull up the actual invitation?
I sure can.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So for students and for their families, these are really important questions. Oops. It was there and now it's like, okay, these are really important questions to look at. And they may seem like pretty basic things, but that's where we start. We start thinking at that level. How happy are you in your current class or classes? Why or why not? Are you experiencing any difficulties at school? Classwork, homework, friends, classmates, projects? Are you having any difficulties at home? Have there been any big changes to your life recently? do you need any extra help in your classes? How are your grades? How is your vision or hearing? Would you change anything about your current program? What would you want to do after school? And things I wish my teachers knew about me. Those are really great. That's great jumping in points uh, to begin the discussion about your story. Current classes, why you are or aren't happy in a particular class may drive what your interests are. Um, are you experiencing difficulties at school? Maybe there's too much work, not enough work. Maybe the way the tests are presented are challenges to you. And these are all things that you want to investigate to make plans for and accommodate if necessary. Have there been any big changes in your life recently? That can impact somebody in a social, emotional way. Do you need any extra help in your classes? Sometimes time and a half on tests, that I'm going to go to test there. Ozzy, what you were saying before about taking those things outside of school and into, a post-secondary placement. Do you need extra time to complete projects or work? Those are important things. How is your vision or hearing? You might have heard me giggle a little bit at that. I'm deaf, hard of hearing. So for me, sitting in the front of the room, or thank goodness I work with people such as Ozzy, who are very
Mhm.
aware of my hearing challenges and are able to accommodate those for me. But she wouldn't know that. She wouldn't know that if I didn't disclose that to her. So then we go back to the disclosure issue. Um, so
That's
anyway,
right,
this is
Roberta. Thank you so much for disclosing. We're always happy to accommodate.
thank you. All right, Ozzy, next slide, please. We're now going to take a look at another short video that will introduce a tool that can be a huge help in organizing your story and looking at the main character, you, in a way that allows you to organize your thoughts to share with the IEP team. I mentioned this earlier. I'm determined. We will only be looking at one of those tools today, but pictured here are two more excellent and easy to use tools. Another wonderful part of these tools is that you can update them as often as you need to and at least once a year to bring to your IEP and transition planning meetings. And before we start that, Ozzy, there's also an app um, that because I am who I am and I'm as old as I am, I don't use apps very well, but it's this very student friendly user app that's located on the I'm Determined website. And for people in this webinar who are not the actual students, but who are members of the IEP team and or parents, there are special sections on this website for each of you to utilize. So the one pager becomes a tool that I would love to see every student walk into their IEP meeting with, because it's not a hard tool to develop, and it's a tool that gives you the foundation, which creates a natural movement forward in the planning process. Go ahead, Ozzy.
Mhm. That's right, Roberta. This website has really valuable resources, and I have dropped the link in the chat for our attendees. Now, let's take a minute to hear from actual students from this video on their website.
Thank you.
Self-determination.
I participated in my IEP meetings only in high school. I would have loved to in middle school.
So I started Undetermined in middle school, and it wasn't until then when I started participating and taking charge of my IEP meetings.
I started going to IEP meetings like at a really young age, like I was around middle school, and it really helped me out coming to the IEP meeting. Just, have my input, because I really think it's important for schools to have at least a student input, because that's what really matters.
When I'm talking to them, I get the feeling that they're trying to make sure that I'm taking the courses that I need and want to take.
Even if you don't talk in your IEP meetings, I think it's a really good exposure at first to just understand kind of the process of how to advocate for yourself.
Because while your parent or while like maybe even like teacher may know like some of the stuff you need, it's very important for the student to attend as they know themselves the best.
I always want to say this, you're in charge of it, but also have the recommendations for your other teachers to support you. It's just not you, it's other people making you better. It's like a unified brain.
So I advocated for needing a calculator for math assessments. And so that really helped me for the chemistry as well, because I was able to have a calculator to help me through those tough questions.
In the IEP meetings, I have to advocate for myself. Let's just say, for example, I need to take my time on the test. If I need to use the restroom, I can actually do that.
So whenever back in 10th grade, I was not able to keep up with the lectures. For whatever reason, the teacher was talking very fast. During my next IEP meeting, I had a conversation about him with maybe either A, slowing down, or B, allowing me to record the lectures. The teacher ended up slowing down a small bit, and I was able to at the very least, I was able to catch up better because he was able to slow down.
So I have small group testing. So I go into a separate room when I go to take my tests. And there was this one time where I was in a room by myself. So I was able to stand up, walk around, talk out loud as I read some of my tests, and that really, really helped me more than I had ever expected. And so I kind of advocated that to the group of people we were talking with, and I was like, it would be nice if could be able to read out loud or move around while I take my test, because I think that's the best test I had ever taken. I felt pretty confident about it.
My first ever IEP meeting I was a part of, there were a few accommodations in there that I had realized I didn't use or didn't quite sit right with me. And then I had advocated, I only need this, this, and this.
I was able to realize that I do have a say in my education, and able to interject what I want to have happen and then actually see it happen really made a difference for me.
It's like the steering of the ship. You steer the ship, but also you have your other teachers or even just the students with you can lead you in the right direction.
I believe a lot of students would be more on board and comfortable with their IEPs if they had a bigger voice in making those decisions about themselves and the goals that people want to see them achieve.
Thank you, Ozzy. So I think that when we talk about developing storytelling skills, in order to share the perspective is so important to the transition planning process. And as the video shows and data supports, it's directly impactful to students' secondary success. So one of the things that one of the students said was, I recognize that I do have say in what is happening, and I can interject. And I think those are two things that are really important for you to take away today. I, for one, am incredibly impressed by the student voice here. There is a statistic here in New York State. It's a pie chart that shows up that says less than 3% of the time at typical IEP meetings is spent by students sharing. Now, we definitely want to move that dial, and there's no reason that any of you can't help move that dial. We've gone over a bunch of ways so far to be able to have you share what your think about what it is and share what it is that your goals are, how you arrive at it, what your disclosure is of your disability if you want to disclose. And I got a little ahead of myself, so right now I will discuss the one pager again, if that's okay, Uzi. So on the left-hand side of this slide, you'll see the one pager, a good day plan, and a goal plan. And we're gonna, as I said, focus today on the one pager, but I'm going to draw your attention back to the website, which is a huge help. And it's free, and there's no reason not to use it. And team building around this is so important. So today we're going to focus on the one pager. However, a good day plan is a really good tool. What makes your day successful? What presents challenges in your day? Who helps you get around it, or how do you get around it? That's what a good day plan does. And if you think about that, that does transcend throughout your whole life. And a goal plan, well, that's exactly what transition planning is, correct? A goal plan, setting those goals. Those goals are going to change. When you were little, maybe you wanted to become a teacher. Maybe as you went on, you decided you wanted to be a teacher even more. And then maybe later on, you decided you wanted to be a salesperson or a person in a movie making company. I don't know, but those goal plans, those goals, looking at your strengths, looking at your challenges, and looking at those goals as a whole, these tools are excellent tools for you to be able to do that. Ozzy, could we play the one pager overview, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Reeve Thomas. I'm from Winchester, Virginia. I'm currently a senior at John Hanley High School.
My name is Jocelyn Lynn and I'm a freshman in college.
My name is Eres.
My name is Garvin Rodriguez. I'm in 12th grade in Hayfield Secondary School, which is in Alexandria, Virginia.
My name is Betsy Barnett, and I attend Rappahannock Community College, and I'll be graduating in December 2021. The one pager is a tool that we use at Undetermined to help you figure out what your strengths and challenges are. Because sometimes when we have a lot of challenges in our life, we don't really see the positives side of things.
Non-neurotypicals can't communicate at times because of disability, but the I'm Determined papers can just give that like a lightning bolt of a communication.
For the one pager, you've got like 4 different sections.
So this green box right here says my strengths,
My entrance.
Preferences and needs.
Depending on how well you communicate with others, the one pager can be a great way to express yourself and show others like your needs and your interests. I mainly share it with my parents and the school staff that I work with.
I attended all my IEP meetings, and I brought one of the undetermined tools with me, and this one pager was very helpful too.
I'm very open to sharing my one pager because if I want to show it to my IEP team in a matter of minutes, they can know me better.
I do think that everyone should fill out a one pager at some point in their school career. It really helps you figure out what you need to work on and what you're really good at.
I think knowing yourself really helps you figure out what you want, and I think it just makes your path a bit clearer, and it makes it, I guess you could say, go smoother.
So I would advise someone who's filling out their first one pager to just really think about yourself. Don't think about what other people think or what your mom and dad think or your teacher. Fill it out for you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ozzy.
Of course.
So I think if you walk away with any tool in that toolkit today, this one pager becomes a tool that brings so much of what we are discussing today together. And think of it
it's
as
really
a
a
gift.
wonderful tool. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about filling out one for myself.
I know, right? As I watched the video, it reminds me that really you can utilize that in so many arenas of your life. So as a student, when you are unsure, maybe you haven't participated in an IEP meeting yet. You heard the students say, this is a great tool. This is a way to inform that committee of you looking at you going forward. And that's the key to storytelling. That's the key to self-determination, and that will help you develop your self-advocacy skills without even really having to do that much except take a self-inventory and walk in with that page. Okay, Ozzy, the next slide, please. So, as students, you actually you have some skin in this game, if you will. Student participation in IEP meetings, New York City Public School guidance. Students at age 14 must be invited to the IEP meetings focused on transition planning. You can go to IEP meetings before you are 14 years old. And for parents that have younger students, I encourage you to have them go to the meetings because there's no more focused an IEP meeting than one that has the student there and informing the committee. And it could be something we heard earlier, something as simple as sharing what the likes and dislikes in their school day is, where they feel successes, where they feel challenges. That one pager for a fourth grader is just as impactful as the one pager for an 11th grader, just have different content in it. So students at age 14 must be invited to their IEP meetings focused on transition planning. And Ozzy, I'm gonna defer to you on requirement number 1, only in the sense student receives a student-friendly invitation. From my understanding, the SESIS system has changed recently and gone to an Atlas system. Is that's correct? Yes, and everybody on this should have access to that.
Yes, that is correct, Roberta. New York City public schools are currently going through that transition. So for most students, this information will not be available on SESIS anymore. It will be available on Atlas.
Thank you. And so you guys got an insider look at what an invitation needs to look like or should include, so it won't be a shock to you. The meeting is scheduled when the student can attend. Parent is informed of the importance of student participation. For the parents that are on this call today, or on this webinar today, it is really important to have your student there. The buy-in, if the student is present, is documented. Data supports that student participation in the IEP process drives the student successes. It drives the student-focused ability of the committee. So please, let me just inform you, as well as the schools, student participation is very important. If a student is absent, the team must document preferences and interests in the IEP. Oh, guess what? If we did the one pager, we could actually submit that even if we can't make the meeting as a student for whatever reason. And then that one pager informs the committee of exactly who you are and what your interests are and your strengths. Younger than 14, a parent should be consulted about participation. At the IEP meeting, students should be encouraged to share their educational goals, identify post-secondary interests and transition needs, ask questions and express concerns, and provide input on strategies that help them learn. Again, well, if you use that tool and some of those tools that we brought forth, I think that part of your part in that IEP meeting becomes very, very clear cut and very driven by you. Next slide, please, Ozzy.
For sure. And Roberta, I think on the video we just saw about the one pager, it was very relevant to me. The student that shared that it was at their IEP meeting when they realized that they were provided accommodations that they didn't really need. And they were able to say at that meeting, this is what I need. Exactly, based on their actual needs. So to that point, for provide input on strategies that help them learn, what better way to share what is working, what needs to be changed, what can be better, other than in your IEP meeting to the IEP committee.
And Ozzy, I know, sometimes because it's on a video, people may think that, that's pre-set up, that discussion, but I've been in and out of IEP meetings, and I have to tell you, one of my favorite ones recently involved an 8th grade student who ended up going to his IEP responsible teacher and having that teacher explain to him why he was included in a class that he did not need anymore. The teacher had to say to him, you know what, you're right. So I think just that empowerment and awareness, that you rightfully bring forward of what works and what doesn't work. Nobody else can tell you that. So I think it is really great. And speaking of which, we're at assistive technology and your future, and how assistive technology connects to your IEP and transition plan. So I am a person who is very assistive technology dependent. I wear dual hearing aids. I have Bluetooth between my computer and my ears. I have amplification devices. And in your IEP, there is actually a section that will point out if you received an evaluation, and you have to request an assistive technology evaluation at some point if that's what you need. And in your IEP, if you received an evaluation and the service was approved, the AT is listed under special factors, present levels, and programs and services. Since we already know that transition planning helps plan for college work and independent living, it makes sense that if you use AT now, it should be discussed and part of your transition activities page. AT is not a given. It's a process described in assistive technology. So if you go to the New York City Public Schools website under assistive technology, you'll find out how you would request an evaluation and the steps to have the assistive technology included if you're found to be eligible for it. And even if you don't have assistive technology in your IEP, you can still use assistive technology for your advantage. Very important to note though. But a lot of teachers, I'm not sure how it works because of the cell phone check-ins at the beginning of the school day in different schools. But a lot of teachers actually will let you utilize assistive technology in the classroom, and that may not be something preserved in your IEP. An example of that would be note-taking, speech to text. Sometimes it's just easier, maybe some translation translation apps may help as well. So all assistive technology, but not necessarily assistive technology preserved in the IEP, and that's the difference. If you have assistive technology, computers or equipment during your school years, that remains with the district. So when you transition out of high school, that doesn't go with you. And in individuals who may use something like a communication device, that is something that then goes to be required to be evaluated by whoever the agency is that is helping in that post-secondary life. And your school should be connecting you with, that goes to those transition checklists. School should be connecting you with agencies that will assist you with qualifying and obtaining those pieces of equipment. Next slide, please. Yep, assistive technology and the transition process. This kind of goes over the domains in life after high school where assistive technology may be necessary to be used, and how assistive technology will support you, because a lot of times you may not even be aware that you're utilizing assistive technology. During school, it comes under an IDEA requirement, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and to ensure FAPE, which is a free and appropriate public education. So if you need that assistive technology in order to process your education, to have access to your education, then that's what you'll get. And that's why those evaluations are done. It can support academic achievement and functional skills and promotes independent self-determination and social participation. So you want to monitor your current ATUs, evaluate the effectiveness. So Ozzy, to your point, there may be assistive technology that's in the IEP that the student isn't using. And so you're going to adjust that based on the student's needs. And there will be evaluations done prior to exiting school that will help indicate what assistive technology will be useful in post-secondary life. If we could go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Elsie. The exit summary, or to sum it all up before you go, I like that title. The exit summary is very important. Why? Students in high school have their IEP, and that drives the way in which they are educated based on their individual needs, learning styles, etc. In post-secondary life, as well as a well-prepared exit summary can make a tremendous impact on assisting a student in communicating which student services, office, and post-secondary programs, and colleges and universities. Also, if a student is going into a vocational school or job after exiting or graduating, job coaches, job developers, and vocational counselors and potential employers all benefit from having access to a well-prepared exit summary. And I'm just gonna, this exit summary must be provided to a student whose eligibility for special education services terminates due to graduation from post-secondary school with a regular diploma or due to exceeding the age eligibility, 21, for a free and appropriate public education under state law. So basically, I'm going to sum up the exit summary. I'm going to draw your attention to going to the state ed website, which is the link at the bottom of the slide, which has a very extensive description of the exit summary and the importance of the exit summary. So in transition planning, every year you go to at least an annual review, an IEP annual review, to look at where you're going the next year. Look at the exit summary meeting, if you will, as the IEP meeting, the annual review for the following year, regardless of where that is. So what your IEP doesn't carry after you leave school. Nothing in your IEP carries. But the student exit summary is an excellent tool in highlighting those things that have been provided and those levels of performance as a student is exiting school and what their needs are. So for a student, and you'll look at the domains, education, employment, and independent living. All of us have some component of that as we exit school. And then for those individuals that are leaving and maybe going to a day program or into an agency type scenario, present levels of performance, social development, and physical development will become important concepts. So if navigating a building is hard, for whatever the reason, these are all components of the person. Doesn't define the person. It's components of the person that going into post-secondary life, you don't start from scratch then. You have all this information that is compiled, and especially for those who may be accessing OPWDD type services, Office of People with Developmental Disabilities Services, it's a wonderful tool for developing a life plan, which is a component of their post-secondary life. And also even somebody who's going into employment possibly after school and might need the assistance of Access VR. This is a really good tool before you even are evaluated by them to say, here's where we're at. Here's the present level of performance. Here's some of the domains in which we will see a need and a function level. So an exit summary very often gets overlooked because it's like the end of the education process and everybody's looking to get out. But a well done exit summary, and they can give a whole class on the exit summary alone, is an important tool in your toolbox before you leave high school. All right, Ozzy, next. Turning 18 in New York City. Isn't it all about turning 18? 18 is considered the year of majority. Again, I used a tool to design this graphic because I'm not good at drawing and organizing my thoughts, and going into all of these different domains is really important. I encourage you to spend some time looking at this slide. It's a very useful graphic. And I've studied transition planning and accumulated a really great deal of information. So I wanted to use a tool from my storytelling toolbox to put some of that information into a form that would allow me to tell a story to all of you using visual support. Again, going into an IEP meeting, you can do the same type thing. As a family, you could work on it together. As an individual student, you could work on it on your own. AI must be used responsibly, but it is a tool that can be very helpful. Since I did the work, let's look at it more closely together. So when you turn 18, these are all the arenas. There's school consideration. But when you turn 18, the rights are yours. You lead your IEP meeting and you make your own choices. Legal decisions. You're legally an adult now. Signing contracts, choosing where you live, getting advice if needed. Parents, when they turn 18, this is true. So there are considerations such as guardianship or supported decision making that you can start to look into depending on the need level and the function level of your students. Adulting can be a challenge. So you really need to look at this very fun, nicely colored slide and think about these things. Independence, to take the subway, and you do daily tasks. Health and privacy, very, very important. Health and privacy, a very important part of transition. And for students, it's very necessary that you discuss this with a parent, guardian, or caregiver. Once you turn 18, your medical information is private. And so while that may make you feel like you can flex a little bit, God forbid something happens and you get brought to a hospital or emergency room, if you don't make arrangements so that your parents can have access, or your caregivers or your guardians or whoever is in your circle can have access to that information, hospital staff cannot share that information. These are adulting things that all need to be considered in transition. And that's not school transition, but these are things that can be discussed as part of that transition process. Work in the future. Well, that's what we're looking at. Plan for life after high school, job, college, learning job skills. Access VR is a New York State office that will help a student accumulate vocational skills and training. A student with a disability, vocational skills and training. Money and benefits, money management, bank account, debit card, Social Security information, Social Security disability, and Medicaid, how your insurance is covered. And the bottom right is perhaps one of my most favorite. Civic rights. You can vote now. And you have to follow, you're 18, so definitely follow the laws. For males that are 18, as you register to vote, you're also registered for selective service. And that's something that you need to think about. A student with a disability, depending on the level of support you need or how the disability impacts you, you may be eliminated from the need to register for selective service. And I think the bottom is kind of fun. Excited about turning 18, a little nervous, and goal for your future. It's just a fun graphic to look at, but it's some really heavy stuff included in that graphic. The next slide, Ozzy, please. Okay, and so this is the transition ecosystem for students with disabilities in New York City. And notice the student and family are at the middle. I'm assuming most of you are joining us from home or at least from outside of the school building in which you receive your education, because it's a weekend. If a parent, or if a parent outside the school building which your child is educated, that is a perspective from which we will be viewing this slide. Transition planning may begin in school, however, it reaches far beyond those walls and into the community. And let's take a look at this slide together. So the student and the family, college supports, school supports, vocational and rehab supports, disability services, community resources, and post-secondary outcomes, employment, college training, and independent living. So when you look at this slide, you will see that school is just a small portion of what transition will look like, what post-secondary life after school will look like. Preparing for all of the rest of it is why transition planning is so important. And there is a Department of New York City Department of Youth and Community Development has professional opportunities. So that's, I'm going to repeat that. New York City Department of Youth and Community Development has professional opportunities when students are in school to get internships and work-related experience. And that's a resource to tap outside of school, right? That's something to look at outside of school. Community resources. One of the things that isn't on this graphic that is really important to mention is that in your community settings, probably a community drop down, it's important to develop as a person. So in New York City, you have the unique opportunity to have access to museums and theaters and those types of programs, all of which help develop you and your experiences to formulate what your future goals are. Don't forget to access that. Clubs, sports, all of those types of activities also go into it in a less formal way, perhaps, than those listed on this slide. Ozzy, next, I think it's time for a Zoom poll. Am I right?
Yes, it is, Roberta. So now that Roberta has so kindly explained to us some of the key terms to transition, we want to gauge what your current understanding of transition planning is right now. So I'm going to launch the poll. As you can see, the question reads, transition planning helps you when thinking about ... And you have 4 options. You may choose as many options as you see fit. The first one is attending college. The second option is attending a trade school or entering the workforce. Third option, attending a day program. And fourth option, planning for independent living. So I'm going to give you all a few more seconds to choose between those options which one will help you, for which one it is important in terms of transition planning. And while we give the audience a few minutes, I just want to point out, Roberta, that we are already at the 1 hour mark. So if it's okay with you, we can hang here on Zoom for a few more minutes. And I also want to thank our audience for remaining here with us for a few more minutes while we finish the presentation. So I'll go ahead and close the poll now. And according to your answers, 40% of you think that transition planning is helpful when thinking about attending college after high school. 30% of you think it is important when attending a trade school or when entering the workforce after high school. Also, 30% of you think it's important and it's helpful when attending a day program after high school. And the winner in this poll, 80% of you think that transition planning is helpful and important when planning for independent living. How about those answers, Roberta?
I love those answers, Rosie. Again, no bad answer. And hopefully, people are encouraged, students are encouraged, families are encouraged to really take a deep dive into transition planning. And students, you are encouraged to tell your story, whatever that story is. And those outcomes that you're looking at for the transition planning are all fabulous. And they can be even more fabulous depending on how you inform them and how you plan for them. So your voice is so important.
Thank you so much, everyone, for participating of our poll. I'll move to the next slide.
This is a me slide, okay. Putting yourself advocacy into action, next steps you can take. Please increase your participation in IEP and transition IEP meetings and transition planning. You can read Synergia's transition fact sheet. You'll get that in an email. And or you can reach out to Synergia directly. Which information you'll see how to contact them in a bit. Get involved in your school community. This is what I was talking about. New York City public schools, disability affinity, inclusion, and disability pride student clubs. These are all clubs that get their start, but reach out into the community, get their start in the school and reach out into the community. Get involved with community organizations. You can join Include New York's Project Possibility. Fabulous program. Great people over there. Definitely look into Project Possibility. It is also, again, a free program and one that provides great experience, great tools. Contact your parent center to get more resources and technical assistance on transition planning, which that is where I got all my information from and have been housed in a parent center and cannot speak highly enough of my colleagues at the Metropolitan Parent Center, who I've worked aside with for a very long time now.
That's right, Roberta. Here at the Metropolitan Parent Center at Synergia, we have a plethora of resources and technical information for families and students to help them navigate their transition planning. They can also request a one-on-one with our education specialist to get answers to specific questions about transition that they may have. And I love these steps as actionable steps to take away from this workshop. These 4 steps will give you a very good uh, first step after you leave the workshop on where to put your focus on if you're in transition or if you're about to enter to transition. So for all of you who are wondering what is a parent center, well, here at Synergia, we have one of the 4 parent centers that serve New York City metropolitan area. We are federally funded, and like I mentioned, we provide information, referrals, and technical assistance to parents of infants, children, and youth with a suspected or those who have a developmental and intellectual disability. We're also very proud to have helped launch the New York Region 1 of Parent Training and Information Center Collaborative, thanks to a grant given to us by the U.S. Department of Education. That means that we work alongside other partnered community organizations like Advocates for Children, Include NYC, that you may have heard of or you may have worked with through your educational path. Together, we increase the access to resources for families across New York City and Long Island. And if you're outside of New York City, you can use the link on this slide to find the closest parent center near you in the entire country. So wherever you are in the country, you can always find the closest parent center where you can reach out, get technical information, get assistance for anything related to special education. Now, here at the Metropolitan Parent Center, to talk specifically about what we do and who we are a parent training and information center, and our goal is to ensure that parents of children with intellectual and developmental disabilities receive high quality, relevant, and useful training and information to help improve the outcome for their children. Some of the services are included in the slide. Our services are no cost to our clients, and we do not ask for immigration status from our clients. We provide trainings and workshops like the one you are attending today, for example. We also have a bilingual special education advocate, like I mentioned before, and we provide in-depth consultation with this special education specialist. I'm sorry. And we also have our autism initiative that offers after-school art programs, social skills group for teenagers, recreational events, and support groups for parents. And at the heart of what we do here at the Metropolitan Parent Center is Apple Academy, which is a 6 weeks leadership and advocacy program for families and self-advocates. Our goal is to support, educate, and empower families across New York City. Now, the Autism Initiative is a project that supports the work of the Metropolitan Parent Center by bringing increased awareness to New York City residents about the growing population of children who are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And we do this by providing different services to the population. The most relevant for today's audience is the Integrated Transition Program. So let's take a look at the Transition Program. This is a socialization hybrid program for teenagers aged 14 to 21 who have a main diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. The program is facilitated by a bilingual English-Spanish professional, and it has a total of 22 sessions. Some sessions will be in person, and some sessions happen at the Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan, and some sessions will happen virtually via Zoom. All of these sessions require parent participation, and case management is offered to the participant families. Other than our Autism Initiative programs and the programs that the Metropolitan Parent Center offers, Synergia offers an array of adult services that are available for people. Most of these require OPWDD eligibility. Some examples are day services, community services. We also have employment services, residential services, family care, and one service that do not requires OPWDD eligibility is Access PR, which, like Roberta mentioned, it provides vocational training to high school students. So here in this slide, you'll see our contact information. To apply to any of these programs or to register or to get more information about any of our services, please reach out to our intake line via phone or email. You can contact us at 212-643-2840, extension 602, or by sending an email to intake@synergiany.org. I will also be sharing this information on the chat with all of you, and you will be receiving a copy of the presentation deck once we conclude. In this presentation deck, we have also integrated resources for you. We have added resources from our website, from Synergia's website, which are available to all of you. We have also included resources from New York City's public schools, all of them also available to all families online. And we have included all of the resources that we talked about during the presentation, and they are quoted by slide number, so you can access them by slide number. And we have also included other resources that are not part of New York City Public School websites, like the I'm Determined website. We have also the Youth Engagement Now website and some other websites that will be of interest to anyone who is in high school and planning or preparing for transition. So with that, I want to end the portion of the presentation where we share the content and open the portion of the presentation where you are all invited to ask questions to our presenter, Roberta Grogan. If you have not shared your questions, you can do that right now using the Q&A or the chat function that you will find on the bottom section of your Zoom window. And I can see we have a few questions already here for you, Roberta. I'll go ahead and read the first
Thank
one.
you.
It
Thank you, Lucy.
says, how to prepare a teenager for their first IEP without making her feel overwhelmed. Do you have some advice for this family, Roberta?
Yes. Oh, see, as I spoke earlier about it, I do believe in inviting students to attend their IEP meetings at very early ages. I mean, I may sound overzealous, but I don't think that it can happen early enough um, because it keeps the meeting focused on the student. So sometimes, just interviewing your child, we all have cell phones, or most of us have cell phones. I shouldn't assume everybody has one, but um, in recording a casual conversation with your child about how their school day goes, or what their dreams are, or what classes they love, what they feel they're particularly good at, using that undetermined one pager, not to beleaguer that, but using that as a format for conversation. You can include your child in the CSE without even bringing them to the CSE if you prepare a recording such as that. So, and to make it easy, I think, it can become very overwhelming for uh, virtual involvement. Accessing it by a Zoom type of setup is a bit easier, maybe because it doesn't seem as overwhelming. But when anybody, I don't care if you're a child, a student, or a seasoned adult, walks into a room and there's a bunch of people in there, it becomes overwhelming. And so just becoming familiar with the fact that, or driving home the fact that everybody's a team, that it's a team approach to this until otherwise determined, but and hopefully never having it be that, but really looking at it as a team approach to um, education, and to the student driving that, becoming a good self-advocate, self-determined, and informing. Really, the student is there to inform the committee about themselves. And also, I think that buy-in for a student is really important as well, that if a student participates in their IEP meeting, then they understand what goes into the IEP. They understand how many players are involved in their education, and that people have a vested interest in their success. So I think that's a form of, residual empowerment for a student to become involved. So I think that's important.
Right. Thank you so much for that answer, Roberta.
You're welcome.
I see
You're
people
very
are
welcome.
replying to it saying thank you, and that is very helpful. And going back to what you mentioned about the one pager, on the one pager video that we watched, it was very valuable for me when one of the students in that video said, even if you don't talk, it is good for you to attend your meeting just so that you know what happens in the meeting. So perhaps another thing families can do to invite their teenagers to IEP meetings without them feeling overwhelmed is to invite them just to be present, not to participate the first few times, just to see what the meeting is like and what happens during the meeting. And depending on the student, they can decide to do this when they turn 14 or even earlier than this if they want to sort of get the student acclimated to what an IEP meeting is.
Excellent point. Excellent idea,
Mhm.
Ozzy.
Our next question says, does the student need to participate in the whole IEP meeting? Is it appropriate to have them present there all the time?
I think your last answer leads into this a little bit. They should be as present as they're comfortable being. And, you know, I think a soft open, if you will, would be to say, come in for the first 5 minutes, just introduce yourself, get to know who the people in the committee are, and you could stay as long as just don't define for them how long they need to stay, and let them know that it's up to them if they want to leave after they introduce themselves. If they're comfortable introducing themselves, then that's fine. There's no requisite amount of time that a student needs to stay in there. From a student perspective, now that's speaking to the parent, to the student perspective, there was something mentioned earlier, nothing about me without me. That becomes a charging call of self-advocates as you become a more seasoned self-advocate. Nothing about me without me. And so hopefully that is a mantle that a student picks up and feels comfortable embracing and moving forward in that committee. And if by chance a student has somebody, I've been asked by students to go to IEP meetings with them just as a support person, not to speak for them. And sometimes there have been cases where I have scripted the questions based on something similar to a one pager and enabled them to participate in that way. And when they were done, they could get up and leave politely. There's no drama in it. But I think those things being discussed in advance are important, and then just honor the student's comfort level and participation.
Right. Great suggestions, Roberta. Thank you. It
Thanks,
is
Ozzy.
important to recognize that every student will be different. Every student will have their individual needs, their individual strengths. So that should be the foundation to whether or not they participate and in what way, right?
Yep, agreed.
We have another question here. It says, is it mandatory for a 14-year-old to be invited to their IEP meetings?
Yes. Do they have to go? No. But as you'll see in the earlier slides, at 14, they start to be formally invited to the meetings.
Got it. Short and sweet, yes. But if the family decides they do not want to participate, or if they don't want to participate yet, they can bring this up to the CSE, which is the Committee of Special Education that
Yes.
oversees the IEP document.
It's important to note, I don't believe that a student should be present if they're under 18, but over 14 without a parent or a caregiver
Got it.
there. So I think that that's important because especially, the student starts to become empowered. They may say, I want to go, even if the parent doesn't want them there, but they need to be invited, and their presence, if they are not present, their absence needs to be explained.
Great. Thank you, Roberta.
You're welcome,
And
Ozzy.
we have one more question. It
Okay.
says, how can I help my child become more independent as she becomes an adult? And I don't want to talk about your personal life, Roberta, but I know this will hit a very personal spot for you.
Yes, it's okay. You could talk about my personal life. I'm an open book, Ozzy. So I haven't. I did share that I'm the parent of two individuals with disabilities. One of them is on the autism spectrum. He's 29 years old, and he attended a post-secondary program, not a traditional college, but a work program designed to enhance skills, employment skills, academics, and life skills. And part of the transition process involves doing something called a Vineland scoring, which is it's independent skills. And I'm sorry, because I don't know if you can hear the dog barking, because this is my crazy life, but the dog is barking. So finding out where those skills are, there are a ton of assessments that can be done during the transition years to find out where that student is at by way of independence. And those plans should include building that independence. It's a process. It's not necessarily an easy process all the time. My son came back from his post-secondary program. It was a 2-year program, and it took him a little bit of time. He is employed part-time, and the program that he is employed at has supports in place, but does not have a job coach at the one placement. Then he volunteers at another placement with a job coach, and he lives in his own apartment, which at his age I wish I had my own apartment. But again, those vehicles to allow for that apartment come through good transition planning and independence building. And so OPWDD services, Social Security Disability services, and funding streams become important. And these are things that all should be addressed during your transition planning. Eligibility for these services, because that goes to independent living. That goes to the exit summary that we discussed. Doing those types of assessments prior to the student leaving is very, very important. I mean, you can get them done afterwards. I don't want to suggest that not having them done is the worst, but you should be having those done. Students are evaluated every 3 years. So that last triennial evaluation before the student exits high school should include those types of assessments and evaluations to help determine where they are in independent living skills and to develop those. And there are sometimes you have to be really creative to develop those independent skills. But I will tell you, just a little aside, my son was, I want to say, like second grade, and I sent him with money up to our corner to go to the bakery to buy rolls and to get change and buy those. Those are the little things that you can do to develop independence, and that's a journey. And so there are really great websites for that as well. And a lot of what we included here today will include that.
Great. Thank you so much for the answer, Orta. That was so
Thanks for giving me
helpful.
the opportunity, Ozzy.
Thank you for tying it all in for us with that answer. And thank you for drawing from your personal experience as well.
No problem.
So that's it for questions at the moment. I want to be conscious of the time, so we will answer questions for people individually, but those are all the questions that we're gonna take for the time being. And before you go, please take a minute to fill out our quick survey. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat. Your feedback means a lot to us and it helps us keep improving. So please take a minute to complete the survey.
The chance to have a voice, Ozzy, is a chance to have a voice in the process.
It's a chance to advocate for what you want in terms of the services you get from the Metropolitan Parent Center. That's a great way to put it. And with that, thank you all so much for being here with us today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation on your voice, your story, your future, taking an active role in your IEP meeting and transition plan. And a big, big thank you to our presenter, Roberta Grogan, for sharing her time and her expertise with us. Before
Thank
we
you.
go, I want to remind you to complete our survey. Your feedback means a lot to us. And if you require further assistance or resources, our contact information is on the screen for you. Again, if you want to contact us via phone, that's 212-643-2840, extension 602, and you can do that Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Or if you want to reach out via email, you can do that to intake@synergiany.org. We also want to invite you to connect with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can search Synergia Inc. on any of your devices to find us. Thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank